Welcome to the Fighting on Film podcast, the podcast all about classic and obscure war movies, from the Normandy landings to the days of chivalry and swords. If it's been captured on film, we're going to try and cover it. I'm Robbie of RM Military History.
I'm Matthew Moss of Historical Firearms and the Armourer's Bench.
Hello, welcome back to Fighting on Film, everybody. And this week we have a special guest, and it's our first returning guest. I'm pleased to say we have Paul from World War II TV with us today.
Hi, folks. Happy to be back.
Fantastic.
Great to have you on again, Woody.
So this week we're covering a film that is very close to Woody's heart, and it is the 1981 football prisoner of war hybrid Escape to Victory. And as it's the Euros, we thought we'd do it.
Yeah, it's the perfect tie-in. We are not sponsored by UEFA, but never mind. Maybe next year. When did we all first see Escape to Victory? Now, I think for me, it was probably on a Sunday afternoon. Woody, did you see it in cinemas when it came out?
I did, but I knew all about it before it was even being filmed. So it's a different back thing for me, because the buzz was just around. To introduce myself as being an Ipswich fan, who, as you will find out, listeners, have an integral part in this movie. That was 79, 80 was when I was a massive, great fan. I'm a big fan now, but that was when you were a kid. It was going there, taking your milk crate down to the front of the stadium, sitting there watching the games. And there was this buzz at the end of the season. And it was that 79, 80 season finished. We finished third, Ipswich. We'd been beaten by Manchester United in second, Liverpool first. And there, it was like, we could have done more. And then there was, our players are going off to make a Hollywood film. It was like, okay, then. So that's where I first heard about it.
That's great. I love it. It's like for me when, because I'm a Luton Town fan, unfortunately, and we're in the Damn United. There's a couple of Luton lads who walk past the camera in like a montage scene. I'm like, that's our moment, Luton on film. So I completely know how it feels. But for me, I think it must have been on ITV4 here in the UK one afternoon, a bit like Matt. And I've never seen it in its entirety until I sat down to watch it for the pod. I'd always caught like the last half hour or the first half hour. It was never a movie that I sort of stuck with.
So you've always missed Stallone's escape in the middle then?
Yeah, that was a shock to me. I was like, hang on a minute. What's he doing?
You've missed the entire middle plot of the film.
I mean, for a lad who missed probably 90% of the training, he becomes a pretty cracking keeper, I must admit.
He really pulls it out of the bag.
Yeah, he does. So shall we? I think we should start with the cast, really, because this movie the cast is outrageous. In anyone's movie, this cast is up there. So for actual proper actors, you've got Michael Caine as Colby, who is an ex-West Ham England captain before the war. You've got Sylvester Stallone as Hatch. He's a Canadian-American ranger who sort of is in this camp with Caine.
Max von Sydow, Steiner. He's, well revered.
Anton Diffring as the commentator, but not with his voice, weirdly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which is a weird thing. Anton Diffring from Where Eagles Dare and all those other things, who had a very distinctive German voice, for reasons best known to the director, in the movie is dubbed with an English voice-ish, even though he's playing a German commentator. I've never understood that one. And if anyone else is watching this, listen to this, and has just realised that, Woody's done it again. He's made me question something about that movie that I've never thought about. Like the Richard Burton in The Wild Geese, about his flight, the meal on the flight.
Oh, yeah. I didn't know that. I honestly didn't know that they dubbed his voice. I never noticed. I know that they dubbed the part where he talks about neutral referee or something like that.
I mean, I did consider whether it was not just looped, because it is Anton Diffring talking but looped, but I'm convinced it's not his voice. I'm now convinced it is someone else doing the voice. And
it does seem a bit disembodied in places, doesn't it?
I could be wrong on that, because he could do other voices. I mean, he was living in Britain for so long. I'm sure he could. He's an actor, but I just don't think it's him for some reason.
I think they missed a trick by not having Motti.
Yeah, John Motson there in his sheepskin.
That would have been amazing. Yeah, and I like, is it John Walk? He gets a line, Ipswich Town player.
Well, he does get a line, except he's dubbed as well.
He's dubbed as well, that's it.
Yeah, because his Scots brogue was too difficult. And John Walk, the thing is, I've read all these Ipswich books and stuff like that, where it's kind of legendary thing. And John Walk was the John Huston, the director, just couldn't understand a word he said, so he was dubbed.
Poor John Walk. John Huston is like, what? Who's this kid?
I know you're going to talk about this later, but that's the weirdness of bringing in an American director for this. Is that outstanding director, John Huston, The Family, but to do a football movie, a soccer movie, it just, you'd have thought they'd have got an international director of some kind who understood football. But
yeah,
maybe that's just me.
No, I totally get what you mean. But I think at the time, obviously, the North American Soccer League, the NASL, was huge. You know, the New York Cosmos were known by everyone. And you had it. Every single player who hit 30 seemed to go over there to sort of finish their careers. After this movie, Bobby Moore played in the NASL to cover for a team who had injuries.
Right.
Yeah, Mike Summerby's in it as well, that massive Man City hero, you know, legend. He won nearly everything there is to win with City, and he just finished playing for Stockport. So it's quite a leap, Stockport to Hollywood, or Stockport to Budapest, shall we say. And then you've just got all these sort of big names like Halvar Thornson, he was an FC20 player at the time, Paul Van Himst, Anders Schleck forward, really famous people. Ozzy Ardiles from Tottenham Hotspur. I mean, come on.
Yeah, legend.
These are peak names. You know, now it'd be Mbappe, Neymar, Ronaldo, but these are the players of the time, and you get to see them, some of them anyway, at the peak of their powers.
One thing that's always made me curious is how they came to pick Ipswich players. Like, how did those guys come to be involved?
The legend is, within the Ipswich Town supporters thing, is that Bobby Robson was quite a big name. The manager of Ipswich, you know, that he was quite a big name, and he was somewhere where some Hollywood guys were talking about, we'll need some people for this film. And he said, well, we'll do it. We always do an overseas summer camp thing.
Yeah.
And it just kind of happened randomly. But, you know, as Robbie was talking, and I were talking before we started recording, Ipswich were a huge team in this time. That, you know, if you're going to pick a team that was really well known, you would have been going for Liverpool, Manchester United, Ipswich, maybe Aston Villa. I know people are laughing who are under 40 that Ipswich a big team, but they absolutely were a big team. And they had this sort of international reputation for playing football in a kind of certain way. Yeah. And it just happened. Interestingly, the whole squad were kind of invited to go, but the stipulation was that they would have to have their haircuts. And Paul Mariner, who was our centre forward then, who had a 1970s mullet, effectively, and probably still has, wouldn't have his haircut. So some of the first name team players didn't go out there. But the great majority did, and they assumed they were going to be extras. But then in the end, they kind of realised they needed this sort of core, you know, the ballet company, if you like, to form this key football team. It's like a video game football manager kind of thing. They're buying in the best player, but you've got to make it look like you're creating a team. Yeah. So having a core team as part of it, so you've got people who know how to pass to each other, made sense. And of course, as you'll find out, that they needed a realistic double for Sylvester Stallone in goal, and they need a realistic double for Michael Caine, and they found those two with Paul Cooper, the Ipswich goalie, and Kevin Beatty, the Ipswich centre back, who basically, according to the legend, when they went in the makeup room and came out, when Kevin Beatty stood next to Michael Caine, people were just amazed how the two of them looked perfect.
And famously, Caine needed a double because Ozzy Ardiles said after a few years after filming, he said that Michael Caine couldn't run.
Yeah.
That's like,
he said he couldn't run like 20 yards without getting out of breath.
Yeah. It's like the Galacticos of the Allied team are like so famous, and then you go to the German squad and you're like, you could have got Beckenbauer if you tried. You know, Pele was teammates with him not 3 years before he retired. So I just think it's odd that they don't. I don't know who wants to play it. Who, you know, Beckham wouldn't be good for Beckenbauer's career, possibly. No. You know, reunification hadn't happened yet. I can understand that, but it is a shame they sort of ignore the German team a little bit because there were German stars at the time. I just think it's interesting to leave them out.
I think you hit the nail on the head. I think they would have not leapt at the opportunity to play the baddies in a war film. It wouldn't have worked, I think. And I think as we go on with this conversation about the movie and its structure, I think the lack of the German team don't feel like the enemy.
No.
The Germans as a Third Reich don't feel like it. It lacks to me a kind of a baddie. The movie it kind of nearly works, but you don't feel the peril. You don't quite feel there's an enemy, and
it's not even like there's a big crunching like centre half on the German team that you go watch him because he'll have you. You know, he's a
carrying
really
a Luger,
hard bastard. Yeah. You know, like Luger in his sock or something. You know, like there could be some conflict there, but I totally get it. It doesn't feel like the Germans are pushed as the sort of movie's enemy.
Well, by the end of the film, Steiner's literally like giving them a standing ovation.
I mean, you'd clap that Pele scissor kick.
And every other German officer there is like, oh, we'll have to put him on the list.
Yeah.
You know, he's there like just being good German, just like, yeah, these Allied lads have done a cracking job at playing this football.
The thing is, he does look around and say, it's Pele. He's got a scissor kick, lads. Come on. You know, it's like, I kind of understand it.
Perhaps we should discuss the premise of the film in case anyone hasn't.
Is there one?
Yeah, exactly.
Well, this is the premise of the film is Max von Sydow decides that they should have a friendly football match, and the Third Reich seizes it as a propaganda moment, and they can portray the Allies getting thrashed. Sylvester Stallone is eager for an escape, gets his escape ruined by Michael Caine, but then escapes anyway.
Yeah.
And then he's forced to break someone's arm so he can join the team. And and so he can be reunited with the French woman he fell in love with within like 3 hours.
Yeah. So you're now really making it sound really silly now.
It kind of is, though, isn't it?
It is.
Yeah, I think as the director, obviously John Huston, he makes adventure films. So for me, this is his sort of attempt at a prisoner of war movie hybrid with a bit of adventure in the middle, just to sort of sedate him, and then quite a well shot football sequence. It's almost it's a good football film that gets spoiled.
I wonder if that was by the second unit director.
It might have been, you know. I can't imagine Houston being like, make him take that corner kick again. It didn't look quite accurate. You know, I can't really. I know he wasn't.
Yeah, Stallone wasn't on the back post. Oh, come on.
Man on. Doing doing the arm rolling thing at the side there. Yeah.
You blind riff. You know, I can't.
Okay, so let's just remind everyone what John Huston had previously directed. The man had like a 50-year career. So let's run through some of his famous ones. We got Maltese Falcon in 41. We got Treasure of the Sierra Madre in 48. Asphalt Jungle 1950. Red Badge of Courage. The African Queen 1950.
Battle of San Pietro.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Moby Dick. Gregory Peck in 56. The Misfits, and then with Caine, he had The Man Who Would Be King, which is, an incredible film.
Yeah.
If you put The Man Who Would Be King and Escape to Victory next to one another,
that's not fair, Matt.
It's night and day, really. It's bizarre.
But then after this, he films Annie, which is even more bizarre. Maybe he's just having he's just having fun.
I don't know. Yeah, perhaps so. Maybe he wanted to do something different, or maybe he just wanted, to take some well-paying jobs.
Yeah, possibly.
I mean, on paper, it kind of works, So we're going to take football that everybody in the world watches, and we're going to combine it with a POW escape film like The Great Escape, and we're going to make it into an adventure as well, and we're going to take the guy from Rocky. It sounds like surefire, absolute. Bringing those audiences together, what could go wrong?
Because apparently, Roger Ebert says he did an interview with Stallone at the time, and he says apparently around Hollywood it was being touted as Rocky, like Rocky meets Great Escape. Yeah. So it's like I can completely get it, but and it's also got like really good like people attached to it. So you've got Jerry Fisher, who was the cinematographer. He was on Aces High. He worked on Highlander. He also did The Offense with Sean Connery.
Mm-hmm. He did Holcroft Covenant with Caine as well, which is a good film.
You also got music by Bill Conti, who did all the music for the Rocky franchise, almost all of them, and the Karate Kid. And his music in the movie is sounds heavily inspired by The Great Escape to me.
Yeah, it definitely is. There's some homage being paid there, isn't there? Definitely.
Mm. And it filmed in Hungary in 1980, released on the 31st of July, 1981. And the stadium, the Colombes Stadium, it was filled in Budapest by the MTK Stadium. So they filmed it in Budapest because people on the production were worried that Paris it had been rebuilt, big parts of it, and it was too modern. So Budapest filled in for, apparently it looked more like East Paris in the 40s than Paris did. Film for a $12 million budget. It's quite high for the time. Gross 27 million, so I think it did quite well for the time. It wasn't a flop. Although
it's hard sell though, isn't it, football to Americans? Even with Rocky and John Huston and Pele, it's still a hard sell.
Oh, and interesting, the only little tidbit that I found was really interesting. They had Desmond Llewellyn, who played Q in the Bond films, as technical advisor for the prisoner of war sequences because he himself had been a prisoner of war during the Second World War, which I find incredible. But he doesn't have a credit.
That's really interesting.
Yeah, that was on the AFI, the American Film Institute catalogue. There's some great information on the film there that I found.
I mean, the POW camp scenes have a real sense of grounded. The way that the escape committee, even the way the Stallone's solo breakout is filmed, it's good angles. There's moments when it's got a real sense of gravitas and it feels like it's up there with the World War II classics. And the period detail, I think, is pretty good throughout until you get to the infamous very last scene with the crowd, which we'll get to that later, I guess. But there's moments when it has everything's all the cylinders are firing, and then it just kind of drops off these cliffs of weirdness where the tone doesn't work, and you feel that there was no real single voice behind it keeping it, because it can't be Huston because he clearly doesn't understand football, so he can't kind of steer that bit. And I think that's where it kind of loses its way sometimes, where no one kind of knows who to stand up to and say, yeah, well, this is what we're going to go with here, lads. It lacks that. And that needs to bring in Eastern European players seems like a slightly contrived way to remind the audience that the Nazis were bad people killing lots of people in Eastern Europe. But it didn't really work. I think they're better off not doing that.
My whole issue with that scene is that, they look gaunt, they've been through hell. And I really felt for the guys, but I was like, oh, okay. So Caine's going to get them. He's going to revitalize them. They're going to be beefed up, on this special diet that Caine's asked for, which I thought was the whole point of it, of him asking for the good food and extra food, was to build up these prisoners of war to really help them and sort of rejuvenate these guys' careers. And then they would absolutely pummel the Germans at the end. And it would be all the Poles and that would score all the goals and win, and Mark Caine would be just sitting in his manager's chair being like, see, you've liquidated half these people and you're calling them the Untermenschen, that, but look, they're better than you. And that's what I thought would happen.
But you never really see him again.
And then they don't turn up again. And I'm like, really unfair, in my opinion, to sort of dangle that little tidbit in front of your nose and don't do anything with it. It's a shame.
Yeah, and the weird thing is with those five, I think it's 5 Eastern Europeans arrive in that truck, or 6, and 4 or 5 are just clearly just extras. The guys from Budapest, they're not footballers. Then you've got Kazimierz Dana, who played in Hungary, and I think he played for Man City for a while, because he's the only one of those 5 who's actually a footballer, and I think he makes the bench, doesn't he, for the game? But you don't see him for some reason. You're right, that whole plot line just kind of disappears half of this. Like we brought them in, you see them eating the soup, whatever it is, and then they don't come back to them. There's things about that film that you wonder whether in post-production or something there was some debates about, should we go with that? Should we carry on with that line there? No, let's just kind of forget that one. Yeah.
Because Dana's like he plays for the San Diego Sockers in the NSAL, so he was a known star, or is about to be a known star in the States. So I bet they were kicking themselves when he went over there and absolutely, he scored something like 10 plus goals every season. He won a lot of things out there, did really well.
Brilliant talent. Yeah, one of those absolute legendary forward. Yeah. And
then you've got the whole escape thing, which to me doesn't go anywhere either, because Caine acts like he doesn't want to escape, and it's like thrust upon him, and he's like, "Oh, I've got to escape." I'm like, "But don't you want to?" I kind of don't understand his character at times because he sometimes just seems like.
And then at the end, when they are escaping, he's like, "Come on, we're going now."
Yeah.
And then they're all like, "No, no, we want to stay and play." And he's like, "Oh, they want to stay and play."
And he goes like, "But Jude, you think you can beat them?" And it's like, what? But Caine, do you actually, do you want to be a prisoner?
They really don't know what they're doing, Michael Caine, throughout the whole film, because he's clashing more with his own fellow officers than he does with the Germans. He has quite a nice relationship with Steiner, Max von Sydow. That's one of the main problems with this film. There is no hard and fast sort of antagonist. It's just this sort of ethereal, evil Nazi Germany sort of, background. And then you have Steiner, who's like, "Do you want to play football? We'll have a football game." And Michael Caine's up for it. And from then on, Steiner's sort of like just like a pushover. He's like, "Oh, you want more food? Okay. And well, I can't really do that, but here's more food. Oh, you want Eastern Europeans to play? I can't possibly do that. They aren't even seen as human beings. Here's the Eastern Europeans. You can have them. You want to have the guy that's in the cooler back on the team? No, we can't possibly do that. Oh, you've broken someone's arm. Okay, then yes, you can have." It just doesn't. Max von Sydow's character doesn't have any backbone, and he isn't the evil Nazi. He's he's Herr Good Gem, and it's that trope of like
when they introduce him at the start, it's like, "Oh, this is Steiner. He's gonna crack down on you lot," and then he doesn't, and you're like, "Oh."
To me, Caine is the character that doesn't work, and I love Michael Caine. I think when he's on his game, he's a brilliant actor, and he can also do a crap performance. But I think we know, I just started reading yesterday Alex Churchill's book about Chelsea in the First World War, and we know that in the First World War, Second World War, football just stopped. We love football, like as we're living in this COVID era now, and football just for a while last season stopped because it's like we all love football. Matt doesn't. A lot of us do. But it's like, actually, there's more important things that are globally important now. Football, we love it. It has to be relegated. And Michael Caine is portraying an infantry officer. He's been in the war somehow. How has he still got sport as his number one focus? If he's an officer, has he been captured at Dunkirk? He's had men killed under him. He's been captured in North Africa. There's no backstory. This obsession he has with it being a sport, and I'm not going to try and escape because I'm not. I don't really buy it. And maybe if the Germans had found him living in some weird other part of the world where he had been in 1930 football and the World War II had passed him by somehow, and perhaps he didn't even know there was a war, and they plucked him and put him in there to train the team, that kind of makes sense. But he's a soldier, and I don't get what his character's motivations and at all. It just doesn't work. And he should have just played the coach, not the player, because
agreed. Yeah,
he's too fat at the time, and seeing him attempting to run around the pitch. What was he? He was born in 33, so 80, so it's 47.
Yeah, 47. Yeah.
But doesn't look his best. If you look at him, 76 Eagle has landed. He looks in really good form there. Yeah. But 5 years, I think the latter 70s, I don't think was Michael. I think that was his trifle period. I think
he wouldn't have been a playing period. He wouldn't have been a playing player.
No,
in 39 at that age.
Yeah.
You get that a bit, actually. In the 20s and 30s, you do get players playing into their late 30s.
He would have been 42, 43. That's quite old.
It is. It's pushing it. It's pushing it.
And it's very old for a captain as well. If he'd been captain at Dunkirk, perhaps. Maybe he's a TA captain.
But that doesn't. If he's a TA captain, that makes his motivation even less sense, because it shows that he's a soldier. He's an accidental soldier, isn't he? That's the vibe they're giving you, is he's just a sportsman who happens to be in khaki because he was called up. But that doesn't fit with a commissioned. He's a commissioned officer. He's been. I can't believe I'm criticizing a film that I love because of the Ipswich connection, but that's the purpose, is to discuss it, dispassionately and subjectively.
It has its merits elsewhere, though. They were just discussing one of the bits where it falls down. Because
I always felt Caine's character, if he'd had his leg broken and he couldn't have played in the match, and then he had to be the coach, and it's sort of like, I'm not going to have a career after the war, but I can stick it to the Germans, something like that. As I say earlier, there's no conflict. No one has any conflict to overcome in the way they should do. Stallone sort of forgets, I think, who he is halfway through the movie. It's all a bit weird, isn't it?
Yeah, so he's escape obsessed at the beginning, and he's completely focused on it. He's very much in the sort of the McQueen sort of mindset of he wants to escape. It's his duty as an officer, and then he's very reluctant to assist in the escape of a larger number of his fellow officers. So it turns out that his motivation isn't that of an officer trying to escape as duty. He just wants to escape because he isn't going to come back into the camp and aid the escape of the rest of the team, like the commanding officers of the camp, the prisoners wants. So he's kind of reluctant to do that, and then he does do it. So it's a little bit, it's meandering. He's got like a weird meandering character, and then there's that whole sequence where he's in Paris with, is it Renee, the lady he meets? He's in a safe house. Anyway, so he speaks decent French throughout the whole escape. He's at a ticket office ordering tickets. He's chatting to sentries. He manages to navigate his way around Paris. And then as soon as he gets into this lady's flat, he's like, parlez the English? And his French just goes, and he can't speak French. So there's even like this.
Such is the power of the boner. Language is lost. Yeah.
So there's the continuity of that sort of like just falls away as well.
And then the sort of annoys me in that sequence that Matt mentioned, because the Resistance are portrayed as very lazy and sort of uncaring. He goes, "Oh, we need to get these guys out." And they go, "Oh, no, can't possibly happen." He goes, "Oh, but it's going to be at the Cologne Stadium." And they're like, "Oh, Cologne Stadium, that changes everything." I'm like, what?
I think it's fair to say the French Resistance aren't really given a particularly nuanced examination. They're kind of there just to flesh out the main plot, and they're a bit cliched and leather jackets and berets, and there's more that it's more the top secret Val Kilmer kind of portrayal than it is the kind of serious Passage to Marseille kind of. But yeah, that's fine. It is what it is.
If Stallone had started singing Skeet Surfing, I would love that.
Yeah, I mean, it's now we're discussing it. It's interesting that it's unevenness and its weaknesses are kind of coming through to me. And yet some things it does so well.
In terms of production, I suppose we should also discuss a little bit about the films and the event that it was based on.
Yes.
So it's sort of based on the concept, it's sort of based on a football match which supposedly took place in 1942 between Germans and Ukrainian prisoners of war. And there's a number of films made in Eastern Europe in the Com Bloc in the mid 60s about this. So there's a Russian movie called The Third Half from 1963, and then there's a Hungarian film called Two Half Times in Hell, which is probably a very poor translation of the original Hungarian title, which is beyond me, I'm afraid. My Hungarian is very poor. But I think it's really interesting that film has much the same sort of plot, minus the Stallone-esque figure, and then it ends with not a triumphant escape with the aid of a crowd that has been buoyed by some fantastic football. It's the team that is responsible for their own deaths, basically, in that film. They don't believe that the Nazis will shoot them for winning if they win. They're told not to win, basically, I believe. And the film ends with them being gunned down on the pitch.
Yeah, and you get that wide shot of them all dead.
Yeah, it's a beautifully shot scene, very powerful.
And it's really powerful. When I saw that scene, it really got me.
Yeah.
And then you watch this one, and you're like, where the fuck are the stakes? Because there aren't any.
No.
Not, and you have to assume that the prisoners of war that they got out of the gulag were with them. But they didn't look like they were when I saw it.
Let's hope they were.
Let's hope they were. That movie everything this movie isn't. And I don't know how the transition across is like. Obviously, you can't gun down Bobby Moore. You know, no one would want to see that. But we've come back to it again. There's no stakes. There's no enemy. No one feels in danger really. It's tough, isn't it? It's a tough one because that those movies, they really have a message to say. You know, very anti-fascist. Those movies. But then this one doesn't really have any agenda.
What happens is the victory in the football game becomes the major achievement, but in fact they should have structured it in such a way that there's actually this overarching victory over fascism, over evil, that somehow make the football game should be allegorical for a greater victory, but actually it is just about getting more goals than the Germans.
Yeah, it's just
and the
a
Germans,
football match,
the German team in the film are not established enough. No. The Baumann, who was who was playing for New York Cosmos and what have you, is not German enough to carry. Werner Roth is not stereotypically German enough to make you, the audience, kind of buy into it. I know it would have been a cliche, but I think making him more of a Wolf Kahler kind of blonde guy would have given him a better.
Yeah.
I don't know how. I think the lead German player should have been an actor, not a footballer, because he doesn't look menacing, does he? When he's squaring up to Stallone, you just think,
Stallone would have you. It literally pushes him away in the sequence.
Yeah, it doesn't
pushes
work.
Him away. And even if the commentator had said, "Oh, and this is, you know, Hans, and he's been on the Eastern Front, and he blew up 10 T-34s like last week, but now he's back for the German squad." If it had established them as double hard heroes of the Wehrmacht, then you would have been like, "Oh, dang, like these guys are going to really give Ozzy Ardila."
Well, it doesn't even establish them as being like Germany's best football players. I mean, the commentator mentions it briefly. They
do mention the keeper, played by Ipswich's reserve keeper, Laurie Civil, who is now a fishmonger in Lowestoft.
Amazing.
And Robin Turner, who was an Ipswich kind of reservist, plays the German winger. So there were two Ipswich players in the German 11, and that's weirdly, we're bringing up this idea of it being a legendary thing to Ipswich fans, because that is Laurie Civil, who played the keeper's greatest moment. That is essentially his FA Cup medal. The thing he'll be remembered for by Ipswich. He was a great keeper, actually, very brave, but he was only 5'4", was very short for a keeper. But in Escape to Victory, he's the legendary German keeper Schmidt, I think they call him.
Yeah, he makes some top saves as well. You know.
Yeah, he was a good keeper. Yeah. But that is how, if we as Ipswich fans want to see the best of Laurie Civil, we kind of have to watch Escape to Victory.
And becoming a fishmonger, you could say from catch of the match to catch of the day, couldn't you?
Ba-dum-dum.
Matt's face there for.
I just know you were just waiting for Woody to finish his point, and you really wanted to make that joke.
I was aching to do it.
You were so eager to make that joke.
I couldn't help it. It's low hanging fruit that was. It'd have to be bloody low because I'm 5'5". Yeah, I think that's amazing though. I think if you're not a listener from the UK. Now that you could say they're like a very regional team.
Yeah.
But I think it's incredible that you have, you know, there's a set of fans of a certain age, and this is no detriment to Woody at all, but, you know, if you want to relive your youth, you don't quite get to do it the way that Ipswich Town fans get to do it. And I think that possibly is one of the film's overarching good points, is that it really does capture when English football was not in a dark place. It's not the mid-80s yet. You know, it hasn't been overtaken by hooliganism and all that. But as we are now just getting back into, you know, English teams are dominating Europe again, we were double hot in the 70s and 80s at producing these fantastic teams that you wouldn't think. You know, you get your Nottingham Forests, you get your Aston Villas, you get your Ipswiches. And I think it's incredible that there's a movie like this that does glorify them, and they come off a season where they've won the European Cup. I mean, come on, you just have to like
the best of football. I mean, that without them trying to go for that, it is showing the camaraderie.
Yeah,
and it was in a weird way, paradoxically, it's forward thinking, because that 11 that go out on the pitch are like a typical modern Premier League 11, in that you've got a Norwegian, a Dutchman, a Belgian, a German, well, not a German, they were on the other side, a Scotsman, an Englishman. But actually, most English teams in 79, 80 were full of home nations. It was Scots, Irish, because Ozzy Ardiles and Ricky Villa were the two Argentines who went to Tottenham Hotspur, and Arnold Muren and Franz Tyson went to Ipswich. They were, for about one season, the only 4 international players that played in the top league in England. And people under 30 now are thinking, what do you mean there's only 4 foreign players in the English top league? That's how it was.
Yeah. And I think it's also great that they get their moment to shine as well. Ozzy Ardiles in it I think he's great. And he gets a line, doesn't he, as well? I can't remember. But he's great. It's just nice to see him. He's one of those just lovely, thoroughly lovely chaps. I think it's just great.
It's time for Ali Tally on Fighting on Film.
Woody, as you're the guest this week, regale us with your... It'd be difficult, I must admit, because it's not a great... It doesn't have any set, battles in it or anything. The only battles on the pitch. But what did you have for your Ali Tally this week?
The playing kit. I mean, it is...
Has to be.
Just about one of the best kits worn by any team, even in a fictional universe ever. Because... whatever team you support, you play, whether you're American or British listening to this, your team, whether it's the Bears or whether it's basketball, baseball, American football, but most kits are crap. But when you look back at kits of the past, they are of the era, and you go, oh my God, did we wear that back in 1973, 89, 94? But that kit with the red, white, and blue stripes down it is just so cool. And even today, Ipswich fans on the forums post pictures themselves going off to the stadium in Budapest, or they have escape to victory parties and stuff. And even middle-aged guys with beer guts can still look cool in the escape to victory kit, which to me is the hallmark of a classic kit. And the fact it's being reproduced by numerous countries. I can't decide whether I like the white of the field players or whether I like Stallone's blue shirt. It's just cool. It's a brilliant kit.
It's timeless, isn't it? And at the time, those vertical stripes were in. You see a lot of teams that had that. I mean, my club Luton, we for loads of seasons in the 70s and 80s, we had a big left-handed stripe going down the shirt. And that was, and you get all those Admiral kits with the big wide collars, and it really does. It even evokes memories of sort of that era of football by having the big collars and things. But can't ignore the German kit, because they look evil in it. It's got the swastika eagle on it. It looks great, but it also did some research about the German kits of the 38 World Cup, and it really does look similar to those. The only thing that's different is it was white with a red collar. So it's like the next season's kit. So Adidas now, they make the German kit. They release one every year. So in the world of Escape to Victory, I like to think that, was it German kit maker like Rauch or something? Or Sondico or someone. They've made the next one on. I quite like that.
Did Krupp make football kits as well as ammo? This year's sponsors are Krupp. We bring you 88mm shells and the German national kit. Season 42, 43.
Love it. That's great.
The kits were designed by Tom Bronson, who was the costume designer, and he worked on a couple of Stallone films like Cobra and First Blood.
Wow.
And I think he was on 48 Hours as well.
That's really good.
So he did some iconic stuff in the 80s.
I'm surprised Admiral didn't snap him up, because they are really good kits,
Which also you to mention, because you mentioned, Matt, about Stallone giving a McQueen vibe. The fact he has a leather jacket, you kind of feel he wants to do one on McQueen. He did a leather jacket. I can do a cooler one because I've got the hat as well. Because he has the newsboy like I wear. He's trying to out McQueen. And if anyone can out McQueen, it's Stallone in that 80-81 period. That's when he's at his peak. In terms of world fame and coolness.
He even gets the scene where he gets to almost be he's semi-naked in it. So you get to see his pecs and stuff or whatever, his muscles. And I'm like, that's got to be in the contract somewhere. Stallone must show his, bare chest to sort of show that he's the alpha male in the group.
this comes up to the legendary story that Ipswich fans relate is Kevin Beatty, who famously doubled for Michael Caine, who was from Carlisle, northeast of England, and was really, really strong, just renowned for his strength. He'd worked in down kind of coal mines as a kid or something like that, and he was the kit boy for a long time. They'd finished the scenes. It was Beatty, Russell Osman, who played the English player, and John Walker, who played the Scottish player of the team. They're having a few beers, film was done, and Stallone comes over and sits at the table in a bar in Budapest, and he says to Beatty, I hear you're pretty strong. And Beatty kind of goes, yeah. And this is when Stallone was getting ready. He had the pre-production script for Over the Top, the arm wrestling movie that came out a couple of years later. And he challenges Kevin Beatty to an arm wrestle. And and Beatty said, I looked at Stallone's arm and he had muscles on his muscles on his muscles. And Beatty was that kind of that 1950s fit, like Robert Mitchum was, that kind of where you're big but you're not all pecs ripped, and gristle.
Hour shape, in shape.
Anyway,
guy.
Beatty beat him in one arm wrestle, beat him in a second arm wrestle, and Stallone got really pissed and kept coming back to Beatty over the course of the film, and kept losing arm wrestle after arm wrestle, and for the rest of the film didn't talk to him. and that is the legendary story that Kevin Beatty, who was, he was 24, 25 when he he retired at 20, about 20, wasn't that? And he beat Sylvester Stallone at arm wrestle. That's the story. All Ipswich fans is that you think Stallone's tough. Our centre half Kevin Beatty was tough because he never let Stallone beat him in an arm wrestle.
That's great. I love it. Absolutely love it. Matt, your alley?
My pick is actually the camera that the forger in the camp puts together.
Thank God someone is going to highlight something that isn't football.
Yes.
That's my one job this week.
Well done, Matt.
So Stallone's getting ready for his solo escape before Michael Caine and his bloody football team ruin his escape. He's going to the various places, going to the tailor and the forger, etc. in the camp, which is cool. A little nod to Great Escape, and I'm sure Desmond Llewellyn gave them pointers on what was realistic. And he visits the forger, who's played by Clive Merrison, and he was really great in that tiny role. He really owns it, and he has some good lines too. So they clear out the room and they put like a bed sheet down over one of the bunks. Stallone's putting on like a shirt, a tie, and a jacket for just a passport photo type deal. And while he's doing that, the forger's getting down a lantern, and he takes the back off a lantern, puts like a little camera body down the back of the lantern, takes a pair of spectacles and takes the lens out and puts the lens into like the front of the lantern to make like a camera objective lens. And Stallone sits down, and the forger takes the photograph with this really cool. It's a really nice prop too, and he gets some really close camera shots of it. And Stallone's like one muffle look because he thinks he's blinked or something, and the forger just goes, "Film's too valuable. Like, he couldn't possibly take another one." And he has another great line, and he says, Stallone asks him how long it'll take for him to develop the photo, and when the like forged papers will be ready. And he says, "Well, it's my busy time. Everyone wants to escape during the good weather." Which I just really like that little. It's because it's probably true, but it's a very just a little glib little off the cuff line that the forger delivers really nice. Like, I think Clive Merrison is really good in that little scene. But that camera stood out to me, and I thought that's cool. Yeah, that's the kind of thing that you could imagine they would have done.
He definitely gives Donald Pleasance a run for his money for forgers.
I wonder if he knows much about birds, though.
The framing of that scene, his little part of the hut where you assume all the devious little tricks and things to get out happen. I like how he sort of moves this little bit, and there's something there. It's all very
he's
very well
going
choreographed
in the roof and stuff.
There's an attention to detail there that is maybe more than it needs to be for actually such a short sequence, because the Great Escape, Albert RN, Danger Within, it's all about the camp. The camp you only see for 20 minutes total screen time. It's either on the training pitch, or there's the hut the prisoners use, and then it's boom, they're in Paris. So the way they set up, it adds, the guard towers, the Germans with the sentries, and the camp looks really good.
Yeah, there's an aerial shot at the start, isn't it, where you get to see the whole thing, and I'm like, well, okay, you've got an actual camp there. It's very impressive.
Apparently, it was built on the grounds of a stables. So the buildings you see in the background are part of the old stables, and then they built the huts and the enclosure. And then it kind of clashes with the rest of the film in that it isn't as detailed in the mise-en-scène sort of stakes. You get that super detailed bit, and there's a couple of scenes where they're in one of the huts talking to the British officers. That's just one little thing that I thought that's really cool. Like,
I like that too.
I wonder where that came from. Perhaps it was something Desmond Llewellyn suggested. Or it was just something that the writer, the screenwriter, had gone, do you know what we need? We need a really cool sequence where a guy puts together a camera out of bits of nothing.
Perhaps it's to make his escape more believable. If all this effort's being put in to get him out, then when those sort of sequences fall a little bit flat, at least in your head, you're like, well, they did the work to get him out there. So it reinforced. Maybe they knew it was a weak middle where Stallone goes off for a little bit. So they were like, we've got to make the bits where he escapes really good. So,
well, I would say that the bit where he's actually escaping is probably one of the best bits of the film.
Yeah, definitely.
So we get that prep. It's once he's out that's a bit boring.
Yeah, that's once he's out, it sort of falls flat. But those parts of him actually building up to it, it all sounds like it's very intrinsically done, and I do appreciate that in the film. I like the fact they went to the lengths they did. It's
very great escape, and Woody's mentioned other examples. It's very in those lines of an escape movie where they have the process of clearing it with the escape committee, going to the forger, going to the tailor. We don't get a 10-minute scene where Roger's shown some lovely handmade civilian garments from uniforms. But we do get the forger's camera, which is pretty cool.
But it weirdly leads, because when Stallone gets returned to the camp, it's the jumping the shark moment really is the fact they managed to get him back in the squad, because the keeper, Kevin O'Callaghan, who's a winger for Ipswich, not a keeper, who has to have his arm broken, is the only other keeper. Now, the thing is, you've seen that sequence earlier when they discover Pele. There's like hundreds of guys playing football. And you go, you're telling me that in this whole camp, there's not someone who can also stop goals, and the only person is the American. I can just say the Germans going, fuck off. No, you can't have him. You don't know.
I felt like there's some like really good keepers, like 300 appearances of Preston North End in like the next hut, and he's like, lads,
lads, holding up his winners' medals. I know you have to I know you have to set up the thing of the escape. You have to get Stallone out, and you have to have him back in the team. But it's just it doesn't make sense that the Germans would let him come back. They just go, no, find someone else.
It's also super contrived that he is the goalkeeper, because there's some really confusing bits in that, the initial like training montage bits where they're like playing, and he's kind of like, he rugby tackles someone like mid game. It's obviously American football, and he's an American football player because he talks about I'm a ball player. Well, isn't that what they call baseball? Anyway. But he's basically talking about being an American football player, and he says we play with our hands and our feet and all this, which is not true because they do kick the ball. But he basically sort of like tackles one of the guys, and Caine says something really interesting where he's like, I've been telling you for a year you don't do that. So have they been in the same camp playing football together for a year? So by now
it's taken him a year to realise.
Stallone should know that you don't rugby tackle people.
Because he's watching at the start, he's watching them play.
Yeah.
And then he's like you sort of see him with Caine. And I assume he was like his.
Yeah, you assume they're friends, kind of, don't you?
And if you've been watching men play football for so long, you'd know.
You would notice people not rugby tackling people mid-game, though, wouldn't you? I mean, if you're thinking, what are the differences between the American and the British game? Oh, we don't tackle people in the British game. Okay, that makes sense.
Yeah,
I think the problem is, though, we're now having a conversation that the producers never wanted anybody to have. They didn't want anybody. Let's just hope nobody tries to analyze this, because it's gonna fall apart really rapidly, folks. So
in 40 years' time, don't try and do a podcast on this film and pick apart our plot.
Some really old
Yeah.
Lorimar Productions bigwig. It's gonna be those goddamn fighting on film boys. They only gone and done it.
We thought we got away from it for
Yeah.
40 goddamn years, and they've seen through a wafer thin plot that makes no sense.
But it's nice. It's nice that they realize. Oh wait, he can play with his hands.
Yeah.
So-
I mean, it's a nice transition.
So he's a
into-
goalkeeper. I mean, it would have made more sense if he'd been like a basketball player.
And again, you'd think if he's been watching it for a year,
You'd know.
they'd have thought, have a go in
you
goal,
could be a
mate.
goalie.
The revelation of that is silly.
Because you could have had a
Really.
funny line where he goes, "Oh, you used to yank, you used to tackle us all, but we thought he uses his hands, so we might as well use him in goal." That's literally the line you make.
Yeah.
Yeah, but they just wanted Pele taking shots at him. That's all.
So my alley this week is it's just one thing, and there's a character called Scotty, the escape committee leader, and he is wearing in an early on scene where he's actually talking to Stallone about who are you, and he says, "Oh, I'm a American Canadian or Canadian American, can't remember." Captured at Dieppe. Annoys me that he's not a Ranger because Rangers were at Dieppe. It's just a little tidbit there that I thought they could have used. But he's wearing, the Scotty character, a horrendous 80s chunky knit cardigan. And it just, for me, I don't even know if it's 40s. I don't think it is. It's not very 40s to me, but it just stands out like a sore thumb. It's like something that David Soul would wear in Starsky and Hutch or something. It's just...
And there were no Bedfords. So you
there
can't
weren't
have a
any
Bedford.
Bedfords.
Yeah.
No Beddies this week.
Yeah.
No.
Is he purely called Scotty because he's in the Scots Guards? Is that it?
I assumed so. But he's
Yeah.
got a little bit of tartan on his beret.
He does. Yeah, that's why he's Scots Guards. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think it's Scots Guards anyway. I could be wrong.
Might be Black Watch. I thought it was Black Watch.
Oh, it might be. I don't know.
I can't remember.
I didn't. I'm only thinking about that now. I didn't actually pay any attention.
No,
I just
I've never
noticed
paid
it.
attention to that.
But yeah, that cardigan is very nice. I mean,
It's a good one,
definitely
isn't it?
David Soul-esque. At least there wasn't a zip on it. That that would have
been
really.
really funny.
Yeah.
Well, the zips aren't kind of wrong.
Yeah, they're not ahistorical. That's true. But where would he have gotten a zip?
Mm.
He spent all that winter knitting that cardigan. Where would he have found a zip?
He spends months bribing a guard.
For a zip.
The guard thinks he's going to want a gun or travel. Actually, I just want a zip. 12 inches,
I need 2
cardigan
feet of
length.
zip.
Yeah. Just another quick one is most of the players seem to be wearing period boots, the big sort of hobnail boots in the football scenes, which is quite nice. I thought in the sequences you'd see like a pair of like blacked out Copa Mundials or something in there, but I don't think you do. So it was quite nice to see.
Which I think you should brings you on to the realism of the football scene. Robbie and I were talking before we went live, recorded, that the intrinsic difficulty of taking a game that's spontaneous and trying to choreograph it. And again, the Ipswich players who were on it talk about the fact some of the game is they just said, go out there and play and just we'll film it and get what we got. But obviously they've got to do this. They've got to have the goals. They've got to have the players they've identified do their stuff. And from a footballing point of view, it is seamless when you watch it. It does genuinely look like a real match. It doesn't feel out of sync anywhere. When Kevin Beatty is running for Michael Caine, you can see that it is him sometimes. And at long distance, you can see that Paul Cooper saving for Stallone is coming down correctly. It doesn't jar.
No.
The football is done really well. It's a really good advert for the beauty of the game. And, the sequence is famously choreographed by Pele. But you can imagine the difficulty of actually putting it on screen with a director who doesn't understand it, a cinematographer who probably doesn't understand it, director of photography probably doesn't understand it, filming it in Eastern Europe, probably half the crew don't speak English. Players who've never actually, apart from the Ipswich lads, they've never played together in the same film. And you've got to, I know that's part of the plot. They've been put together, although they have been playing in this camp for a year or two together. But making it look like a real game of football, I think, is its crowning achievement of that film is that if the football looked shit, because I know American football fans who say the football in MASH, the football in The Longest Yard at times just doesn't look real because you can tell it's been filmed. It does look like a real football game.
I 100% agree there. My fave scene is that whole football sequence. It's got to be one of the greatest bits of football filmed for a movie. The thing about football movies, all the ones that I've watched, they're never really about the football. So like the first Goal film that came out in like 2005, it's god awful, but it maybe has like 20 minutes of football in it, and it's all sort of hyper choreographed. They've got scenes where they've taken like crowds from Premier League matches because it was a FIFA funded trilogy of films. But yeah, it's not good. And then there's loads of other football films that I could just read off the top of my head, and they don't do it as well. You have to love Pele or Diles more, John Walk doing their thing. It's just brilliant.
Yeah.
I know Steiner gets in trouble for standing up and clapping that Pele scissor kick, but I bloody would. I rewatched the Ozzy Ardiles Rainbow Flick a few times because it's just fantastic. If you're a football,
that is beautiful.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm not super into football. I don't mind watching it now and then, but I'm not a huge fan. And even I can appreciate some of those bits, like the Pele's overhead kick that you see 4 times in slow-mo because it's so good. And just capturing that would have been quite difficult when you think about it.
But Pele would have been able to turn it on.
Well, exactly. And he does turn it on because some of those bits where he's dribbling around the Germans, it's beautiful to watch. It's like Pele at his best.
Yeah.
We know that they aren't, tackling him because they've been told not to tackle at that point because they're trying to film that bit where he's
skipping past him. Yeah.
Yeah, skipping past everyone. Really great. Really, really well choreographed, like you say.
And there's even parts where you see like it must be bits of the match they just filmed, and you've got the Ipswich players just shunning off 2-footers and like shoulder barges and stuff. And I'm like, that's another great cross section of how football was played back then. You didn't have VAR, you didn't have, questionable sort of challenges just being blown up for everything. Is like loads of yellow cards in the game now where there shouldn't be, and all this sort of thing. It's just impressive to see players at the time just getting on with it.
And I think we should do a shout out to the sound editor.
Yes,
because that the thudding of the bodily crunches, the thwacking of the ball, and the crowd, and we're going to come on to the bit when it all goes victoire. That sound sequence, that 15-minute bit when it's building to a crescendo there, that is, I believe, Oscar-winning sound editing there. That is just brilliantly done. It'd be easy to have the balance all wrong where you get the crowd too heavy and you can't see it. It reminds me of this year with football, with the crowds not being in the stadium. You can hear the crunching of the ball and the tackling again. And that so clearly the sound editor understood football. Whoever he was, you can look him up while we're recording this, understood football, because that is just brilliantly done.
Yeah, and it feels like a real match. I must admit, it does. They got a full-seater stadium. They didn't bother dressing any of the supporters in 40s clothing because
the front row or two, and then it's just bring your anorak, lads.
Anoraks and
that's more than a bridge too far and Kelly's Heroes bothered to do.
Yeah,
the front 2 rows. So
true,
they can props for that. But
and then you get the great scene where they all get them out. They all they win. Come on the pitch and get them out. It is a good ending.
Bill Conti's score comes into its own then. Again, the sound editing there where it transitions from the match to the and that. And I defy anybody. You've laughed at some of the Michael Caine running around with his beer belly. We've laughed at some of the contrived situations of Stallone. But if you're watching that for the first time, those who have never heard of this movie, who are listening to this, who go out and watch it, if you are not buoyed by that victoire chant and all those French played by Hungarians, you do kind of buy into World War II being fought on that pitch for a few minutes. It's silly and it's contrived, but you do kind of get into the symbolism there of the importance of that victory, and then they win the match and they escape because you're not expecting escape. You're not, they've resisted. We haven't going to give the spoiler alert. They've resisted the opportunity to go at half time, and they're going to go back on them and win the game. And you're not really expecting the outcome that's coming your way. And I think it's just that brilliant sequence. And if I may add, the closing credits of the slow-mo shots of the players, and it's just brilliantly done.
Really good. And for me, that's the whole annoying thing about that ending as well. Could that not have been the escape plan all along? Was to whether we win or lose, the resistance will joy the crowd, that get the crowd up to then storm the pitch to get them out that way, because that just makes so much sense. Yeah, they could have been
showed like shearing off some like padlocks on gates and stuff,
Except it would have spoiled the surprise, because of course. We, the audience, have gone through but they've had their opportunity because it's all been planned. If we'd known that was the way, unless they could have somehow revealed that was what the resistance had planned, but the team didn't know. But then,
you could have had some shots of the resistance in the crowd going, "This is our chance! Come on, everyone!" And they try and get everyone to go in, because you'd never find those lads in that crowd, especially they get given their flat caps and their jackets.
Well, I suppose that also that spontaneity of the crowd with the Victoire chant and the pitch invasion, that's the victory.
And you get some nice shots of the crowd sort of like trying to take K98s off the guards and stuff. How no one gets shot in that sequence is a bloody miracle.
The Germans would have opened up
probably
long before they got on the pitch.
I think that it's interesting is your other shows and Wild Geese, and I've listened to your other ones, is that so many of these classic movies don't remake them, just leave them where they are. This, I reckon, actually might benefit from a remake. Just take the essential plot and tweak and improve the bits that don't quite work, and just nudge it into a bit more historical detail. Because you'd get the football players, you'd get imagine it with some of today's Premier stars and what have you. It could be done again.
I remember David Beckham was touted around a few years ago, and I do think, as of 2019, there is a remake in the works, whether it's actually in any sort of pre-production phases. But it would benefit. I agree with you. It would really, it fits any era. You could replace the war easily, like me and Matt were saying the other night when we were planning the episode. If you wanted to do Escape to Victory, quote unquote, now, with the sort of football stars that we have now, you set it in the Gulf War, because it's a grand coalition. Dwayne Johnson playing the Stallone character. You could have Tom Hardy playing the Caine character, and then just pick.
You've thought about this, haven't you? You've given this some thought.
Bobby Moore, Mark Noble, Pele. You have Ronaldo or Mbappe or Neymar. It just works, and it will work in any era. That's my elevator pitch. If anyone's listening, get Mark Noble on the blower.
And where Mark Noble had his first loan season?
Ipswich.
It was Ipswich.
Oh, amazing. I didn't know that, but I'm really pleased I picked it out.
It was. Yeah. You're really trying hard to please me with your Ipswich references. It's really, really important.
I'm on the tractor, boys.
It is what it is, that movie. And I want to clarify, because we talked about this before recording, that for us Ipswich fans of a certain age, it is kind of like a trophy. We all kind of regret. We came second in 81. So the year it came out, we finished second to Villa. The year when, at the end of the season, we filmed it would come third, and we would have won that season if it had been 3 points for a win, which it is now. It wasn't back then. Some teams have never had glory years. With Ipswich, there's a feeling that of the 3 trophies we could have won in 81, we got the UEFA Cup. Great, we're happy with it. We could have got the FA Cup, could have got the league title. So for us, as Ipswich fans, Escape to Victory is it's in the trophy cabinet in a weird way. We're the only. It's not a real victory, but it was. There's Kevin Beatty doubling for Michael Caine. Russell Osborne still talks about it on Twitter. He follows me, in fact, on Twitter. John Walk still talk. They can dine out on those players, as being a highlight of their career in a weird, surreal, interruption to their genuine careers. So it's an affectionate movie for the Ipswich fans, but it's. At the beginning, you got this idea. It doesn't quite know what it is. It's a perfect hybrid that somehow is so perfect doesn't work. but does.
Yeah, but it's. I mean, I don't know if we've sort of skirted over 5 scenes this week. If that's okay with you, Matt, we sort of.
Well, my favourite scene is actually the scene where Bobby Moore carries a paper mache head.
Oh yeah,
that's my favourite scene because it's so bizarre. It's only in Escape to Victory, or Victory as it's known in America, could Bobby Moore be seen carrying Stallone paper mache head.
Yeah,
it's just bizarre. It's brilliant. I loved it.
And why has that never come up for sale on any of those prop websites?
Yeah.
Someone must have
can you
that.
imagine?
Paper mache. Perhaps it is the paper mache Stallone that went on to make the Expendables, and the real Stallone retired years ago. We'd never know, would we?
It's probably the only film Stallone's ever said anal bleeding in as well.
Christ, yeah, he does.
Does he say that?
He does. So there's a scene where they're getting their kit, and he's doing like this big speech where he's like, "I'm the
Medical,
trainer."
Yeah.
No blisters.
If you've got no blisters,
no blisters.
That's
exactly. And one of the things he says don't get is anal bleeding.
I think he's improvising all that bit, surely, because it seems a little bit like
it's very weird if someone scripted that, but yeah,
push the envelope of what you can say. It's really weird. We've had a lot of fun on this one, and it defies the format in a way. But I think we should just wrap up with some final thoughts. What do you think?
Well, I'll never stop loving it because, as I said, I've said everything I need to say. It's a trophy for the Ipswich team, and it reminds me of being a kid. It reminds me of going there with my milk crate and coming back with my program on the train. It was something we talked about. I knew about the film long before I saw it. We all went to see it in the cinemas with our Ipswich kit on, and it's just an important part of my life. And I know it's cheesy, and I know it's not perfect, but I watch it, once a year or something, and the football, as you say, takes your breath away. Some of the skills that are shown on screen realistically. So it's a great movie that isn't, but is.
It just reminds me of like those John Huston adventure films where sort of just leave your brain at the door, don't think too hard. Because I watched it a couple of times for this recording, and I'm like, second time round, I was like, you know what? I can't hate you that much because come on, like the football scene at the end, and you sort of got the wisecracking of the team early on, and him meeting all the players, and I'm thinking, well, I'm not the demographic for this really, because my football love starts in 2006 or something when I was younger, so I don't have that connection that Woody has. But then I can appreciate all these huge names that are in it. So I can just kind of just get over the fact that it isn't the most competent movie. With the Euros coming up, it's like the perfect sort of taster to a summer of football. I don't think you can go too wrong. It's
no sillier than Raiders of the Lost Ark or Empire Strikes Back, those classic summer blockbuster kind of movies that you, as you say, you leave your brain at the door and kind of go in and just take it for what it is. And it's not trying to, tell you the history of the war. It's just, we're set in the war, but it is what it is. Just enjoy it.
Matt?
I agree. It's not the greatest movie ever made, but it's not a bad film. It's quite enjoyable. It has its positives. There's some really interesting bits in there. Some of the sequences are beautifully shot. It's great to see. Where else are you going to see Pele, Michael Caine, and Stallone all in one film?
Agreed.
It's a bit of a bizarre movie, and that adds to its charm. Like as I say, where else are you going to see Bobby Moore holding a paper mache head? You're probably never going to see that anywhere else.
No.
I mean,
it's unique, isn't it?
It is. Yeah. So it's a fun movie.
And Ozzy Ardeen is wearing battle dress.
Yeah,
exactly.
It's so cool. It's so cool.
Max von Sydow doing keepy uppies. I mean, that's
so good.
That's the guy has played Jesus for goodness sake, and now he's doing keepy uppies. It's clearly not him, folks.
No,
it's his boots.
It's not his leg. Yeah.
Oh, don't shatter them. Shatter the image for me.
Maybe it was. I don't know.
I hope it was.
I say that, but
I thought Max was. Yeah. Did not have a stint in Europe playing for one of the big clubs. No, joking.
Bayern Munich, surely.
Yeah, Bayern Munich, yeah. But yeah, I mean, I thought as well, because obviously we've got the Euros coming up, and it's football's coming home. In this one, it'd be the Allies are coming home.
That is where they missed out by not having the song. That's that era when
you got back home.
I remember so much of the FA Cup songs, and whoever it would be, whichever year it be, Tottenham would go in and they get their Top of the Pops appearance where they'd go in their in their kind of casual but not, and sing their song. That's it. Michael Caine and Stallone leading them in some kind of, we're gonna beat the nut. That would have topped it.
I'm gonna try and write an anthem for this for the hype. So look out for that on the Twitter if I get it done. It's gonna be called "The Allies Are Coming Home" because they escaped.
I can't wait to hear you sing.
Interestingly, football's coming home. We just talked about Frank Skinner, and that Frank Skinner put the original lyrics on, and there was going to be a line about Terry Butcher of Ipswich England. That line got taken out. So another moment where Ipswich nearly always the bridesmaid, never the bride.
The nearly men. Paul, again, I think it's been fantastic having you on again. We love how much of an Ipswich fan you are. I think it's just, and you've been itching to get on and tell us all about it, and we've absolutely loved it.
Cheers. No, it's to think when I first saw it that I would be invited in some kind of authoritative kind of role to talk about this movie was just 40 years on. It's amazing.
No, it's our pleasure to have you on. As always, you can follow the pod on Twitter. Please like, subscribe and share wherever you're listening. And we also have Patreon now, where you can support the podcast if you wish to. We've got some fantastic Patreon members and we're really thankful for them. Wherever you're watching the Euros, whoever you're supporting this year, good luck, and we'll catch you again in the next one.
Thanks, Woody. Thanks for listening, guys.
Bye.